The great ship hung in the void above Earth. It was not a thing of sharp metal and roaring engines like the ships humans built. It was smooth and silent, shaped like a teardrop made of mother of pearl. It moved without a sound, a ghost in the star-dusted black. This was the vessel of the Jegong. On Earth, in control centers and government offices, there was a loud and busy panic. The aliens were here. First contact. The Jegong had not arrived with weapons or threats. They had simply appeared, and with a calm, musical voice on all frequencies, they had asked to speak. They requested a cultural exchange. They wanted to share the pinnacle of their achievement. A man named June was chosen to lead the human team. He was a diplomat, known for his calmness. As the small human shuttle flew towards the Jegong ship, June looked at his team. A woman named Hannah, an expert in language. A man named Tae, a specialist in technology. Their faces were tight with worry. "Remember," June said, his voice even. "We observe. We learn. We are guests." Their shuttle was guided into a soft, glowing opening on the alien ship. There was no clang of metal, only a gentle hum that faded into silence. When the door opened, the Jegong were waiting. They were tall and slender, with long limbs and necks. Their skin had a soft shimmer, like the inside of a seashell. They had large, dark eyes that held no white, just deep, liquid pools. They did not speak with mouths. Sound came from a small organ on their chests, a series of harmonious chimes and tones that the translators in the humans' ears turned into words. The leader introduced itself. Its name was a complex set of notes that the translator simplified to Clear Chime. "Welcome," Clear Chime chimed. Its voice was like a wind chime in a gentle breeze. "We are pleased you have come. We wish to share our art." Clear Chime led them through the ship. The corridors were not straight. They curved in soft, flowing lines. The walls themselves seemed alive, pulsing with a soft, internal light. There were no sharp corners, no buttons, no screens. Everything was smooth and organic. They entered a vast, spherical chamber. The center of the room was empty. The floor was soft and gave slightly under their feet. The air was still and cool. "This is our Hall of Harmony," Clear Chime said. "Here, we create and experience the perfect sound." The Jegong stood around the edges of the room. The humans stood together, feeling small and out of place in their stiff, formal clothes. "We have spent millennia understanding vibration, frequency, and resonance," Clear Chime explained. "We have mapped every possible sound wave. We have eliminated all that is unpleasant, all that is chaotic, all that is imperfect. What you will hear is the result, the absolute beauty of controlled sound." Clear Chime made a soft gesture with its long fingers. The room darkened. Then a single, pure note began. It was so clear it felt like a physical thing, like cool water washing over them. It hung in the air, perfect and unwavering. Then another note joined it, and another. They wove together into a melody that was complex beyond anything a human composer could imagine. It was beautiful. June had to admit that. It was like listening to mathematics made into sound. Every harmony was flawless. Every rhythm was precise. The music built into layers of incredible complexity. A tapestry of perfect tones. It was like hearing the stars sing. He looked at Hannah and Tae. Their faces showed awe. It was impossible not to be impressed by the sheer technical mastery. The sound came from everywhere and nowhere. It was inside their minds. It was perfect. But as the symphony continued, June began to feel a strange emptiness. The music was beautiful, but it did not move him. It did not make him feel happy or sad. It did not remind him of his home, or his childhood, or the face of someone he loved. It was like looking at a brilliantly painted picture of a fruit. You could admire the skill, but you could not taste it. It was art that spoke only to the brain, not to the heart. The final note came, as pure as the first, and faded into a silence that felt deeper than before. The lights in the chamber slowly returned. The Jegong looked at the humans, their large eyes expectant. It was clear they were waiting for praise, for the humans to admit they had been shown something beyond their own abilities. June bowed respectfully. "It is a remarkable achievement," he said, and he meant it. "The control is absolute. We thank you for sharing it." Clear Chime gave a series of pleased chimes. "It is the pinnacle of art. Our sound machines can generate any frequency, replicate any composition, and purify it of all error. We have perfected sound." The statement was not arrogant. It was a simple fact, spoken with the confidence of a species that had truly reached the end of a road. They looked at the humans, waiting for them to admit their own art was primitive and noisy in comparison. June felt the weight of the moment. The pride of his entire species seemed to rest on his next words. He could not try to compete with this. He could not offer a symphony orchestra. It would sound messy and emotional next to this crystal purity. He thought of the advice from an old mentor. When you cannot match their strength, offer them something they do not have. June took a slow breath. He looked at Clearchime and bowed again. "It is a remarkable achievement," he repeated. "We would be honored to share a piece of our own sound." The Jegong were silent for a moment. Then, Clearchime chimed, "We would be most interested to hear what humanity has accomplished in this field." There was a subtle tone in its voice, a hint of curiosity mixed with a feeling of superiority. They were expecting a crude and noisy display, a confirmation of their own advanced state. June just nodded. He did not know what the leaders on Earth would send. He had only a faint hope that they would understand what was needed. They could not send a machine. They had to send something else. Something the Jegong, with all their perfection, could never understand. As they were led back to their shuttle, the perfect music still echoing in his memory, June could only hope that Earth would not try to fight a battle of technology. It was a battle they would surely lose. He looked back at the beautiful, silent, and deeply empty ship of the Jegong, and he knew humanity's only chance was to offer something imperfect. The news from the Jegong ship spread across Earth. Videos of the perfect, beautiful music were played on every screen. Scientists and engineers shook their heads in wonder. Musicians listened and felt a deep fear. How could anyone compete with that? The aliens had not just shown them a new technology. They had shown them the end of in a secure meeting room. The United Terran Directorate was in a state of quiet panic. June's report was clear. The Jegong saw their art as the final, perfect form. Any attempt to show them human music would be seen as a crude and primitive noise. It would confirm the aliens' belief that humanity was inferior. A man named Director Park slammed his hand on the table. "We need our best. The London Symphony Orchestra. We can have them play Beethoven's Ninth. It is a masterpiece of human emotion." A woman across from him shook her head. She was Dr. Lee, a musicologist. She was older, with calm eyes. "Director, if we play Beethoven for them, what will they hear? They will not hear the emotion. They will only hear the imperfections. The slight variations in the violinist's bows. The breath of the flute player. The sound of fingers on strings. To their ears it will sound messy. It will sound wrong." "Then what?" another director asked. "Our most advanced digital composers? We can create a piece that is mathematically perfect. We can match their technical skill." Dr. Lee smiled a small, sad smile. "And then we will have given them a copy of what they already have. A lesser copy. Why would they be impressed by a human trying and failing to do what a Jegong machine can do perfectly? We cannot win their game by playing by their rules." The room fell into a frustrated silence. They had no answer. It seemed humanity had nothing to offer. Dr. Lee leaned forward. "We must offer them something they have eliminated. We must offer them soul." Director Park scoffed. "Soul? What does that mean? We need something concrete. Something impressive." "The most impressive thing we have is our humanity," Dr. Lee said softly. "Their art is perfect because it has no life. It is a beautiful shell with nothing inside. Our art is powerful because it is full of life, and life is messy. It is full of mistakes and emotions. We need to show them that the flaw is not a weakness. It is the source of the beauty." She placed a small data slate on the table. A video began to play. It showed a small room in a simple house. A young girl, no more than 9 years old, was sitting on the floor. In her hands was a musical instrument. It was old, made of wood. It had 2 strings and a long neck. It was a haegum, a traditional Korean fiddle. The girl, Soo-min, placed a bow against the strings and began to play. The sound was thin and reedy at first. It was not perfect. The notes wavered. But as she played, the music changed. It told a story without words. It was a simple folk melody, one about a bird flying home at sunset. You could almost see the orange sky, feel the tired wings of the bird. The music was sad and hopeful at the same time. There was a catch in the bow, a slight shake in a note that sounded not like a mistake, but like a sigh. The video ended. The directors in the room looked confused. "This is your solution?" Director Park said, his voice full of disbelief. "A child? With a piece of wood and horsehair? You want to send this little girl to represent all of humanity to an advanced alien species? They will laugh at us. They will think we are savages." "They will not laugh," Dr. Lee said, her voice firm. "They will be confused. And confusion is the beginning of learning. They have never heard a sound like that. Their machines cannot make a sound like that. The sound is alive. Comes from her heart, through her hands, into the wood. The wood itself has a memory. It has been played for generations. It carries the weight of all those other players. The Jegong have perfect new machines. We have an old, imperfect box full of stories." The debate was long and loud. Many directors thought Dr. Lee was crazy. They argued for sending a team of scientists or a powerful computer or a military display. But June's report was clear. The Jegong did not value power. They valued art. And in the end, they had no better idea. With great doubt, the directorate agreed. they would send Sumin. Dr. Lee was sent to the small town where Sumin lived with her grandmother. She found the girl in the backyard, practicing her hagam under an old tree. She stopped when she saw the stranger. Dr. Lee knelt down to speak to her. Sumin, my name is Dr. Lee. You play very beautifully. Sumin bowed her head shyly. Thank you. My grandmother taught me. How would you like to play your music for some very special visitors? Dr. Lee asked. Sumin's eyes widened. Visitors? Like at a concert? Something like that, Dr. Lee said. They are from very far away. They have never heard music like yours. Sumin looked down at her hagam. But it's just simple songs. Sometimes, Dr. Lee said, the simple songs are the most powerful ones. Preparations began. Sumin and her grandmother were brought to a secure facility. They were given new clothes. Officials tried to teach Sumin how to bow, what to say. The little girl was overwhelmed and scared. June, back from the Jaegong ship, was briefed on the plan. He listened in stunned silence. He had hoped for something different, something unique. But a child? It seemed like a huge risk. A mistake could end the relationship with the Jaegong before it began. He went to meet Sumin. He found her in a room, holding her wooden box tightly. She looked very small and very frightened. Hello, Sumin, June said, his voice gentle. I am June. I will be going with you to the big ship. Are they nice? The people on the ship? Sumin asked. June thought of the tall, elegant Jaegong with their perfect music. They are different, but they are not mean. They are just very curious. Dr. Lee said I should just play like I do for my grandmother, Sumin said. But I'm scared. That is okay, June said. Being a little scared is normal. Just remember, the music you play is yours. No one else in the whole universe can play it exactly like you do. That is your gift to them. The day came for the return trip to the Jaegong ship. Sumin was dressed in a simple, comfortable outfit. She carried her hagam in its old wooden box. The box was not fancy. It was scratched and worn. It had been her great-grandfather's. As they walked towards the shuttle, Director Park pulled June aside. This is a disaster waiting to happen, he whispered. You must find a way to explain it to them. Tell them it is a historical demonstration. Primitive artifact. Do not let them think this is our best. June looked at the little girl clutching her box. He saw the determination in her eyes, mixed with the fear. He remembered the empty beauty of the Jaegong music. No, Director, June said quietly. I will tell them the truth. I will tell them we are sharing a piece of our soul. He turned and walked onto the shuttle with Sumin. The doors closed. The engines fired. They rose into the sky, heading towards the silent, perfect ship. Inside, a small girl held a wooden box, carrying the weight of all humanity's messy, imperfect, and beautiful heart. The shuttle ride was quiet. Sumin sat very still in her seat, the wooden box held tightly on her lap. Her knuckles were white. June sat beside her. He did not know what to say. How do you prepare a child for something like this? He thought about giving her advice, but all the words sounded empty. Instead, he just pointed out the window as the Jaegong ship grew larger. It looked like a giant, glowing pearl. It is very big, Sumin whispered. Yes, it is, June said. But you do not need to be afraid of big things. Just focus on your music. The shuttle entered the ship with the same soft, silent hum as before. When the door opened, the Jaegong were there again. Clear Chime stood at the front, its large dark eyes taking in the human visitors. It saw June. Then its gaze moved down to the small girl beside him. The Jaegong did not move, but June could feel their surprise. It was a silent ripple that went through them. Clear Chime made a series of soft, questioning chimes. Ambassador June, you have returned, and you have brought a young one. June bowed. Ambassador Clear Chime, this is Sumin. She is here to share our sound. Clear Chime looked at Sumin. Sumin, remembering what she was told, gave a small, quick bow. She did not look up. She held the box even tighter. We are curious, Clear Chime chimed. The tone was polite, but there was a clear confusion in it. Please, follow us. They walked through the smooth, curved corridors. Sumin walked close to June, her small hand finding his. Her hand was cold. They entered the same vast, spherical chamber. The Hall of Harmony. The room was just as silent and perfect as before. The Jaegong took their places around the edge of the room. Their large, dark eyes were all fixed on the little girl. Sumin stopped walking. The room was huge. The ceiling was so high it was lost in shadow. She felt very, very small. It is okay, June whispered to her. Just like we practiced. Go to the center. Slowly, Sumin let go of his hand. She walked alone to the middle of the soft floor. She felt the eyes of the tall, silent aliens on her. She knelt down, placing the wooden box on the floor in front of her. Her hands were shaking. The Jegong watched, completely still. They saw the box. It was made of a simple, organic material. Wood. It was scratched and old. It was not a machine. It was a container. They did not understand. Sumin took a deep, shaky breath. She opened the small metal clasps. The sound was loud in the quiet room. Click, click. She lifted the lid. Inside, resting on a soft piece of faded cloth, was her hagam. It was a simple instrument. A rounded body of paulownia wood, a long neck, and 2 silk strings. Next to it lay the bow, a curved stick strung with white horsehair. Clear chime tilted its head. It made a quiet, chiming sound to June. This is your sound-making device? It is organic. Yes, June said simply. It is very old. Sumin picked up the hagam and the bow. She stood up. She settled the instrument on her left knee, holding its neck with her left hand. In her right hand, she held the bow. She closed her eyes for a second. She thought of her grandmother's face. She thought of playing in her backyard under the tree. She tried to forget the tall aliens and the big, quiet room. She placed the bow against the strings. The first note was not perfect. It started, then wavered. It had a breathy, rough quality. It was the sound of rosin on horsehair, of wood vibrating. It was a living sound. It was nothing like the pure, isolated tones of the Jegong machines. A few of the Jegong shifted slightly. It was a small movement, but for them it was like a shout of surprise. The sound was wrong. It was impure. Sumin did not notice. She was in her backyard now. She was playing for her grandmother. She began a simple song. It was a very old Korean folk melody. It was a song about a lonely bird calling for its friend across a wide river. The notes were not complex. They slid into one another. They bent and wept. The hagam was an instrument that could cry, and Sumin made it cry. The music was sad. It was the sound of missing someone. It was the sound of a cool evening and being alone. But there was also hope in it. The hope that the call would be answered. The Jegong were utterly captivated. They did not move. Their large eyes were wide. They were not hearing a perfect arrangement of frequencies. They were hearing a feeling. They were hearing a story. The sound was full of tiny, human things. The slight pressure of a small finger on a string. The soft scratch of the bow changing direction. A note that trembled not from error, but from emotion. They heard the loneliness. They heard the hope. These were concepts their perfect music could describe, but could never make you feel. This sound, this messy, imperfect, living sound, reached inside them. It touched a part of them they had forgotten. A part that understood that beauty was not about the absence of flaws, but about the presence of life. Sumin played on. She forgot to be afraid. The music poured out of her. It was a part of her. It was her gift. The simple, reedy sound filled the vast, perfect chamber. It did not try to be perfect. It only tried to be true. And in its truth, it was more powerful than any perfect machine could ever be. The last note faded away, not ending abruptly, but slowly dying. Like a sigh. Sumin lowered her bow. She opened her eyes. She was back in the big room. She saw the tall aliens looking at her. She quickly looked down, suddenly shy again. She carefully placed the hagam back in its box and closed the lid. The soft thud of the wood closing was the only sound in the room. There was a long, deep silence. It was different from the silence before. That silence had been empty. This silence was full. It was full of the memory of the music. It was full of the feelings the music had left behind. Clear chime looked at June. The usual harmonious chiming of its voice was gone. When it spoke, the sound was slow and quiet, almost hesitant. "We do not understand," it said. The silence in the Hall of Harmony was heavy. It was a thick, living quiet, filled with the ghost of Sumin's music. The Jegong did not move. Their large, dark eyes were no longer just looking at the little girl. They seemed to be looking through her, or at something just behind her. Something they could not see but could only feel. Clear chime's words hung in the air. "We do not understand." It was not a statement of anger or dismissal. It was a confession. It was the sound of a foundation cracking. The Jegong had built their entire culture on a single, unshakable idea. That perfection was the highest goal. They had achieved it. And now, a small human child with a simple wooden instrument had shown them that their perfect mountain peak might be looking out over an empty valley. Before June could think of how to answer, something else happened. The room itself began to change. The walls of the chamber, which were always a soft, pearly white, began to glow with a new light. It was a warmer light, a gentle gold color. It pulsed slowly, in time with the fading memory of the music. Then, images began to form on the smooth, organic surface. They were faint and shimmering, like reflections on water. There were shapes that looked like trees swaying in a wind that was not there. There was the pattern of flowing streams. There was the soft, dappled light of a forest floor. The Jegong looked around their own ship. Their stillness broke. They turned their heads, their long necks moving in slow, confused motions. A soft, collective hum of chimes and tones rose from them. A sound of pure, uncomprehending wonder. Clear Chime took a step forward, its gaze fixed on a wall where the image of a single, falling leaf slowly dissolved. "This is impossible," it chimed, its voice still quiet with shock. "Our ship, it is reactive. It responds to harmonic perfection. It cleanses and purifies sound." The sound was chaotic. It was full of error. Why does the ship respond like this? June watched the warm light play across Sumin's face. The little girl was looking at the walls too, her eyes wide with amazement. She thought it was a pretty light show. She did not understand that she had done something the Jegong believed was impossible. June looked at Clear Chime. A slow understanding was dawning on him. It was not a complete understanding but a feeling, an idea. He thought about what Dr. Lee had said. "We must offer them soul." "Ambassador," June said, choosing his words with care, "I do not think your ship is reacting to the perfection of the notes." Clear Chime turned its dark eyes towards him. "Then to what is it reacting?" June pointed to Sumin, who was now quietly watching the lights. "I think it is reacting to the intention behind them. It is reacting to the meaning." "Meaning?" The chime was flat, confused. "The music Sumin played is very old," June explained. "It tells a story. It is a story about being lonely and calling for a friend. The notes are not just sounds. They are feelings. They are memories. The sound is alive because she put her life into it. Your ship, it feels that life. It is answering it." Another Jegong, standing near Clear Chime, made a series of rapid, high-pitched chimes. Clear Chime listened and then turned back to June. "Our colleague, Swifttone, asks a question. He wishes to know, what is the source of the variations? The machine can replicate the frequencies, but it cannot replicate the inconsistencies. The small shakes in the sound. The slight changes in volume. Where do they come from?" June looked at Sumin. He knelt down beside her so he was at her eye level. "Sumin," he said softly, "the tall people want to know. When you play, why does the music sometimes get a little quieter or the notes wobble a little? Is that a mistake?" Sumin looked at June, then shyly at the aliens. She shook her head. "No," she whispered. "It's not a mistake." "Then what is it?" June asked. Sumin thought for a moment, her small brow furrowed. "When I play the sad part, about the bird being alone, my hand feels a little sad. It doesn't want to press so hard. And when I play the part where the bird calls out, my heart feels hopeful, and my bow wants to move faster. The music, it just comes out like that." June stood up and faced the Jegong. "You see, the variations are not errors. They are the music. They are the feeling. The machine cannot make them because the machine does not feel sad or hopeful. Sumin is not a machine that plays music. She is a person, and the music is a part of her." The Jegong were silent again, absorbing this. Their entire world was based on removing the variable, the emotional, the unpredictable. They had called it impurity. They had called it noise. This human was telling them that the noise was the very thing that gave the sound its power. It was a thought so big and so troubling that it seemed to fill the huge room. The warm, golden light on the walls slowly faded. The images of forests and streams dissolved back into the pearly white. The Hall of Harmony was itself again. But it was not the same. The memory of the warm light and the living music had changed it. It had changed everyone in it. Clear Chime looked from June to Sumin and back again. For the first time, the Jegong were not looking at humanity as a lesser species. They were looking at them as something strange and new. They had mastered the science of sound, but these humans, these fragile, emotional beings, had somehow mastered its heart. And they had no idea how they had done it. The Jegong did not want the humans to leave. The formal cultural exchange was over, but a new, more urgent kind of meeting began. Clear Chime asked June and Sumin to stay. The other Jegong gathered closer, their usual graceful posture replaced by a sense of intense, quiet focus. They were like scientists who had just discovered a new law of physics, one that broke all their old ones. They moved to a smaller room, a place with soft, curved benches that grew from the floor. Sumin sat between June and Dr. Lee, who had come up on the shuttle after the performance. Sumin held her wooden box on her lap, her arms wrapped around it protectively. Clear Chime began. His chimes were slower, more thoughtful than before. "The experience defies our analysis. Our records, our oldest histories, speak of something similar. They use a term that translates poorly. The closest meaning is soul echo. We believed it was a myth, a poetic idea, not a real thing." June listened carefully. "Your people once understood this? A very long time ago," Clear Chime chimed. "Before the great refinement. Before we built the sound machines to remove all instability from our art. We thought we were improving it. We believed we were cutting away the noise to reveal the perfect signal. It paused, and the chime that followed was soft, almost sad. It seems we may have cut away the signal itself. Another Jegong, the one named Swifttone, gestured towards Sumin's box. We must study the instrument. We must understand its materials, its construction. Perhaps the organic nature of the wood is the key. Dr. Lee spoke for the first time, her voice calm but firm. The wood is just wood. The strings are just silk. The bough is just horsehair. You can study them, but you will not find the secret there. The secret is not in the box. It is in the connection between the player and the played. To demonstrate, she turned to Sumin. Sumin, can you play the same song again? Just a little bit. Sumin looked unsure, but she nodded. She opened the box and took out the hagum. The Jegong watched every movement, their eyes missing nothing. She played a few bars of the Lonely Bird song. The same reedy, emotional sound filled the small room. The Jegong listened, not with judgment, but with a deep, hungry curiosity. When she finished, Swifttone brought forward a small, crystalline device. It was one of their sound machines. We have recorded the sound wave, it chimed. Now we will replicate it. Perfectly. The machine hummed. From it, the exact same sequence of notes began to play. The frequencies were identical. The timing was perfect. It was a copy of Sumin's music, note for note. But it was empty. It sounded like a picture of a meal. You could see all the colors and shapes, but you could not taste it. You could not smell it. The sadness was gone. The hope was gone. The sound was clean and hollow and dead. It was the ghost of the music, without its heart. Sumin frowned. It sounds flat, she whispered to Dr. Lee. The Jegong heard her. They looked at each other. They had heard it too. Their perfect machine could copy the what, but it could not copy the why. It could not copy the life. Clear Chime was silent for a long time. Finally, it spoke to June. You have given us a great and troubling gift, Ambassador June. You have shown us that in our quest for perfection, we may have lost something essential. We have perfect silence and perfect noise, but we had forgotten the imperfect, beautiful space between. It was not an apology. It was something more profound. It was a reevaluation of their entire civilization. Your art is not primitive, Clear Chime continued. It is foundational. It is the root that we cut away from our own tree long ago. We thought the tree would grow stronger without it. Now we wonder if we have been living with a beautiful, fruitless tree for generations. The meeting continued for some time. The Jegong asked many questions. They asked about how humans learned music. They asked about teachers and students. They asked about composing. They were fascinated by the idea that a human composer did not just arrange notes, but tried to capture a feeling. They were amazed that no two human performances of the same song were ever exactly alike, and that this was considered a good thing. June and Dr. Lee answered as best they could. They explained that, for humans, the tiny differences were not mistakes. They were like fingerprints. They were what made the music belong to the person who was playing it. As the humans prepared to leave, Clear Chime approached Sumin. It knelt down, a slow and careful movement, to bring itself closer to her height. Child Sumin, it chimed, its voice softer than any sound they had heard from a Jegong before. Thank you for your music. You have shared a piece of your world's soul with us. We will think about this for a very long time. Sumin, feeling a little braver now, looked up at the tall alien. You are welcome, she said. Then she added, my grandmother says that music is a gift you give away, but you still get to keep it. Clear Chime was very still. The simple wisdom of the child's words seemed to strike it deeply. A gift you give away, but you still get to keep it, it repeated, the chime's thoughtful. Yes, that is a new concept for us. Thank you. The humans walked back to their shuttle. The silence of the Jegong ship felt different now. It no longer felt empty. It felt like a quiet room after a deep and important conversation. It was a silence that was full of thinking. The journey back to Earth was quiet, but it was a good quiet. Sumin fell asleep in her seat, the wooden box safe on the seat beside her. June and Dr. Lee did not speak much. They looked out the window at the stars, each thinking their own thoughts. They had not gotten a trade agreement or a technology treaty from the Jegong. They had gotten something that felt more important. They had gotten respect. When they landed, they were met by a large crowd of officials and reporters. Director Park was there, his face tight with worry. As soon as the shuttle door opened, he rushed forward. Well, he asked June, his voice low and urgent. What happened? Did the child embarrass us? What did the aliens say? June stepped out of the shuttle and took a deep breath of the Earth air. He looked at the director and smiled a small, tired smile. They were not embarrassed, Director. They were changed. He and Dr. Lee explained what had happened. They told them about the Jegong's confusion, about the ship reacting to the music, about the hollow sound of the perfect copy. They explained that the aliens were now questioning the very foundation of their art and their technology. Director Park listened, his expression shifting from worry to disbelief, and then to a slow, dawning understanding. So, we did not give them a better machine. We gave them a new idea. Yes, Dr. Lee said. An idea they had lost. An idea about life. The news spread across the world. The story was not about a political deal or a weapons display. It was about a little girl and her violin. People saw the videos of Sumin playing for the tall, silent aliens. They heard about the warm light that had filled the Jegong ship. They felt a strange and powerful pride. Humanity had something to offer the universe that was truly unique. It was not our power or our intelligence. It was our heart. Sumin went home to her grandmother. She put her hagam back in its usual place. She went to school the next day like nothing had happened. Her friends asked her about the aliens, and she just shrugged and said they were tall and quiet. To her, it was just a strange thing that had happened. She was just a girl who played music. Weeks passed. Life on Earth began to return to normal. The Jegong ship remained in orbit, a silent, pearly teardrop against the black of space. They were not communicating much. It seemed they were thinking. Then, one day, a message came for June. It was from Clearchime. The Jegong were leaving. They were returning to their own world. They requested one final meeting. June and a small team went back to the Jegong ship for the last time. The atmosphere was different. The Jegong were calm, but there was a new energy about them. A sense of purpose. Clearchime met them in the same small room as before. Ambassador June, it chimed. Our time here is ended. We must return to our people. We have much to discuss with them. I understand, June said. We are glad for the meeting between our peoples. Clearchime held out a small, crystalline object. It was beautiful, shaped like a tiny star. This is for you. And for the child, Sumin. It is a data shard. It contains a recording. June took the shard carefully. A recording of what? It is not a recording of our perfect music, Clearchime said. It is a recording of our first attempt at an imperfect one. Back on Earth, in a secure room, June and Dr. Lee played the shard. The sound that came out was simple. It was a single, pure note like the Jegong always made. But then the note changed. It wavered. It wobbled up and down in pitch like a child learning to whistle. It was not a mistake. It was an attempt. It was the sound of a species trying, for the first time in centuries, to put a feeling into a sound. It was clumsy and strange, but it was alive. It was their first step on a new road. The Jegong ship left Earth's orbit. It moved away, silent and graceful as always, and then vanished into the darkness between the stars. The story of Sumin and the wooden box became a legend. It was taught in schools. It reminded people that their humanity was not a weakness, but a strength point. One evening, June went to visit Sumin and her grandmother. He found Sumin in the backyard, under the old tree, practicing her hagam. The simple, reedy music floated on the air. It was the same song about the lonely bird. He listened for a while, standing in the shadows. The music was still sad, but it did not make him feel sad. It made him feel connected. It made him feel human. When she finished, he stepped forward. Sumin saw him and smiled. Hello, Mr. June, she said. Hello, Sumin, he said. That was very beautiful. Thank you, she said. I was just practicing. June looked up at the sky, where the first stars were beginning to appear. He thought about the Jegong traveling back to their home. He wondered what they were doing. He imagined them in their perfect ships, trying to make an imperfect sound. He smiled. He looked back at Sumin, who was carefully putting her instrument away in its old, scratched box. The tall people liked your music, he said to her. They are thinking about it very hard. Sumin closed the lid of the box. The soft click was a familiar, comforting sound. Good, she said simply. Grandma says music is for sharing.